Good evening, race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of race number 6 and round number 2 of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, live from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee. James Blank, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Josh Lee, Jeff Piccone, Justin Prince down on pit road for us this evening, and Ryan Bauer, our producer, as always, punching the buttons and making sure everything that you see and hear on our streams is A-OK. Cameras, built by Dougie Beard. 2 races left in this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series season. There are some drivers that are already on their way to the Contender Series in November. There are already some drivers that are beginning to mark down November 2nd as the next date they really need to worry about. But Josh Lee, we still have a lot of fighting, especially towards the back half of the top 20. And what better place for these drivers to brawl than this half-mile bull ring that has been described as many different things. I think my favorite is fighter planes in a high school gymnasium, but this place is fast, no matter how you slice it.
It is the last great Coliseum in every sense of the word. I mean, we're going to see 20 some odd cars go racing. I believe we have 29 here in the top split that'll go racing around for 200 laps. But as we go through tonight, you're really going to see from a lot of the drivers that are on the outside looking into the top 20, you're going to see the desperate moves. You're going to see them going for moves that normally they wouldn't go for. You're going to see them having a bit of an oddball pit strategy, just trying to get as many points as they possibly can on the board to either get above the top 20 heading into the final round, or be somewhat close where they can then strike coming into the final round and walk away inside the top 20. But it is just going to be an intense night of racing, and it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be able to use this pressure and work their way into the contender series, or who's going to crack under it.
And Jeff, in fairness, the fields are a little bit lighter. We've had some drivers who have elected to pull themselves out of this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series and just give it another go at it next year. So the field sizes are down a little bit from the 35 that we had when we went to Knoxville Raceway in July to start this round. But just because we don't have as many trucks on the racetrack doesn't mean that the aggression levels are going to drop, especially for the people right around the bubble.
That is absolutely correct. There's going to be so much action out there, you won't believe it. I'm really excited for this race on a personal level. I love Bristol. I think this is one of the best racetracks, if not the best racetracks that NASCAR visits. So it's going to be a great race. You're definitely going to see a lot of action everywhere you turn. There's going to be passing all over. High lane, low lane, middle lane, anywhere can work here at Bristol. So be prepared, because you will see trucks all over the place.
You will indeed see trucks all over the place. Let's take a look at how we've arrived at Bristol Motor Speedway. Looking at the dates in the second round of this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Started off at Knoxville Raceway in Iowa on the dirt. Then we went to Homestead, Watkins Glen International, Rockingham Speedway, Texas 2 weeks ago, Bristol tonight, and then Phoenix in 2 weeks' time to close out this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series season and find out who advances to the Contender Series. We've run 2 races each night in round 2. You see your race winners off to the right-hand side of your screen. But Josh Lee, the more important piece of this, the points. And these are all the drivers who, especially if you're in the top 5, you should feel pretty good about things. And you're pretty well clear of things, even if you stretch it all the way back to Derek Bordeaux. But everybody from Seth the Merchant up has over a race's worth of points on the cut. If they can maintain that gap by the end of the night, they will be in the Contender Series, no questions asked. Won't even have to worry about Phoenix.
Really, for anybody that's not Donovan Strauss about Seth the Merchant, like you mentioned, a bad night here at Bristol could set them back going into Phoenix for the final round, but it's not going to be a deal breaker for anyone behind Seth the Merchant. Derek Bordeaux all the way further down, they are looking at a good night here at Bristol, so they can maybe make a mistake at Phoenix and still be safe. And you look at Ethan Lane, Drew Farinage, Connor Horn, Adam Gilliland, Brandon Cattell. I mean, those 2 names right there, huge, that are outside of the top 20. They're within just handfuls of points to that top 20. They are looking for any possible points they can get tonight and any jump that they can get going into the final round of Phoenix, so they don't have to get into Phoenix and have to work as hard as they would to tonight.
And even in that stretch from 21st to 40th in points, there's not really much separation between any of the drivers. Everybody's pretty much bunched up within a 20-point range. Now, there's a look at your point standings coming into Bristol. Let's take a moment to learn a little bit more about Thunder Valley. And to do that, we'll turn to our crew chief extraordinaire, Jeff McKelvey, to show you where in the world we are. Not terribly far away from his new home in the Volunteer State, but Bristol, a classic short track.
Yes, it certainly is. Bristol is a half-mile track, but it's got banking like you wouldn't believe. 26 to 30 degrees around this .533 mile track. Just down the road from me, it's going to be a very fun weekend there. I wish I could make it, but unfortunately I cannot, because I cannot get out to Bristol, Tennessee, USA with the concrete surface, which was opened in 1961. It's .533 miles long, .858 for our brothers over the pond. And the banking in the turns is 26 to 30 degrees, the straightaway 6 to 10 degrees. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see that in person, but there's going to be some awesome racing there this weekend, awesome racing there tonight here on Podium Esports. But be ready, because this is going to get real crazy real fast.
Tonight we go for 200 laps. It's just over 106 miles, just over 170 kilometers. It's no quick repairs as per usual. 5 sets of tires in the pits and open setups as we race on August 14th, 2021 in Sim. That's the time and date that we'll see at Bristol. So a few weeks ago back in August, it's about 8:30 p.m. local time. Just about time to take you to the starting grid and introduce you to the field that will compete in our race. A reminder that you can see the other race taking place in this second round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series on twitch.tv/podium2. Kevin McAdams, Sean Butler, Justin Malillo, and company Zach Johnson bringing you all the action over there. But over here, it's Ethan Lane who sets the fast time with a 14.495 second lap to take top spot over Derek Bordeaux, Parker Retzlaff, Cody Bias, names that you have seen up near the front consistently in our races. In that second row, Dylan Alt, Jordy Lopez Jr. starting in 5th and 6th.
What a surprising thing to see Ethan Lane up there at the top of the board. Will Norton, Garrett Conrath sharing row 4. Christian Peterson, Omar Diallo sharing that 5th row, rounding out your top 10. Justin Bolton looking for more consistent finishes. Next is Santiago Tires there on row 6.
In row number 7, we have Mitchell Hunt on the inside with Casey Tucker on his outside. Ryan Hill starts row 8 with Briar LaPrade starting 16th. In row number 9, is Nicholas Morse and Dylan C. Jones rounding out row 9.
Got Brendan and Brandon here starting 19th and 20th. That's Brendan Kohler in the 36. In 19th, Brandon Cattell starting in 20th. Aaron Rodgers, Connor Horn, Frank DeAngelis, and Blake McCandless complete the top 24.
Back from there all the way through to the end of the line, it's Garrison Hogan, Michael Frisch, Austin Yarborough, Brian Blackford, and Tanner Love, all choosing not to throw in a lap when it comes to qualifying here at the world fastest half mile.
Currently in Sim air temp is 87 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds heading to the northwest now 8 miles an hour. Track temp 88 degrees Fahrenheit. Both of those likely to drop over the course of this evening. For late breaking stories from pit road, let's go down for the first time this evening to Windsor, Ontario's Justin Prince.
One of the drivers with a lot of motivation tonight is your pole sitter, Ethan Lane. He spoke with me earlier today and mentioned how it was one of his best racetracks on the service. But after that discussion, he then explained on social media there's a bit of extra motivation for tonight. First, his team put together a crowdfunding campaign to help him if he gets a victory. That total was estimated to be more than $400 before tonight's action per their team president. And the second main motivation, the bigger of the two for him, 4 years ago, his dad passed away on this date. He named this race in honor of him tonight. He said it's trophy or steering wheel tonight for Ethan Lane.
Let's not forget that Ethan Lane is the first man on the outside looking in, coming into tonight, 3 points back of Michael Finlayson, who holds the 20th and what would be the final transfer spot into the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender iRacing series that will start and run throughout Tuesdays in November 2nd, the first date for that series, all the way to November 30th. 5 races to determine half of the field for the 2022 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. We're glad you're with us here on Podium Esports. Tune in either here on the main channel or on twitch.tv/Podium2, or have both up to make sure you have wall-to-wall coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series as race number 6 and round number 2 gets underway for the virtual Thunder Valley and We Are Green from Bristol Motor Speedway. Trouble before we even complete the first lap. I think it was Dylan Alt maybe who got sideways to start, and then a whole bunch of calamity after that as they came down the front stretch, Josh.
That was a typical Bristol pile-up, and it happens on lap number 1. Here's the replay. Looks like it all started around Jordy Lopez Jr. and Dylan Alt. What exactly happened between these two? They're racing down the back straightaway here, and there's the contact. Sends Alt up into, it sends Jordy Lopez Jr. up into Garrett Conrath. Sent Alt back in the pack, and look out, right in the middle of the pack. A couple of drivers miss it. Brandon Cattell with damage. Blake McCandless nowhere to go. It looks like a couple more guys back from there, including Frank DeAngelis, getting away with some damage here on the first wreck of the night.
Just trying to keep track of who was involved in that I saw in particular. Garrett Conrath got the fence. He's the one that bounced into Jordy Lopez to kick all that off, and he's one that really can't afford a bad night. 16 points on the outside looking in, 32nd in the point standings entering this evening. Not the way that he wanted to start his night at Bristol, Mr. McKelvey.
No, it most certainly is not. And while damage here at Bristol is okay, what you really don't want to do is knock the right front fender in, which we saw a lot of people do, because that knocks the toe out of it. You get that all messed up, and your night is going to be a whole lot longer. But long as you can take a little bit of fender damage, you're okay. But when you start knocking the toe in, knock the radiator in, all that stuff, yeah, that's when it starts getting real bad real quick. You can tell Jordy Lopez Jr. is in a whole lot of hurt there. That truck is not feeling great.
And you make a very good point that it is the suspension that you have to be more worried about here. Aerodynamics don't particularly matter all that much because most of your success here comes from the power plant and from mechanical grip, not necessarily a track where you need the truck to suck down to the racing surface, though it certainly doesn't hurt. And Jordy Lopez had a buffer coming into this evening, 61 points to the good, which puts him, what is that, 16 points clear of locking himself in if he can hold above 35. Jeff McConey, I think my math is right on that.
I'm not the points guy here. I'm just watching this Bristol race.
You're the numbers guy.
I'm the numbers guy. The numbers guy, yeah. I can tell you when to pit and when they're going to pit. But points and all that, I don't care about points. I'm up on the box. Points mean nothing to me. We're out there to win the race, and if you keep your driver worried about points and having them nitpick those details, they're going to have a bad night, especially at a place like Bristol. This requires your full attention. It will chew you up, spit you out, and then go in for seconds if you're not careful here at Bristol. Points mean nothing. That's for someone else to worry about. Let the accountants handle the points. Let someone else worry about it. The pit guys are there to make sure that 4 tires get on securely. The driver's there to make sure that truck gets out there to the front. The crew chief is there to help the driver do just that. Points, worry about those tomorrow.
26 points to the good, rather. So if Lopez finishes towards the back, he'll have to race his way in at Phoenix, but he'll have a cushion as we go back to green flag racing on lap 7 of 200. Ethan Lane takes off, and it's a door-to-door battle between Parker Retzlaff and Derek Bordeaux for second.
Already side by side now is Will Norton, who was on the bottom line. Cody Bias to his outside. Conrath, not a ton of damage to that number 12 machine. He's going to try and follow Will Norton on the bottom line. Is Bias going to try and go down to the inside? No, he will not. He's going to try and utilize that in the middle line. Look at the run from Christian Peterson in the 23 as he goes to the outside of Conrath. Now everybody's starting to train on the bottom.
CP for Logitech G Altus Esports. You would expect him to be good at a short track like this. He's got so many victories in the Cars Esports Tour throughout the years, which runs Bristol Motor Speedway on a regular basis. It's part of the super late model schedule for both the Cars Esports Tour and the Real Life Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour. So not a shocker to see CP hunting on the edge of the top 5. Not a shocker to see Casey Tucker not terribly far behind him. And impressive work from Garrett Conrath, considering the damage on his Ford F-150, to hang in the top 10 even with the squished up race truck.
And you can see trying to work that outside line, Casey Tucker currently in 6th, and that inside line seems to be the dominant one here at Bristol, but that outside line, don't sleep on it. It can be used, especially if you are not racing around lap traffic. That's why we're seeing a handful of trucks go up to that outside line. Will Norton able to get around Derek Bordeaux using that outside line, and now we've got a little bit of 3 wide as Bordeaux is going to be stuck in the middle, almost coming up into Casey Tucker.
Just about had some contact there as we go on board with Brian LaPrade. One of the top drivers in the point standings, came into tonight's second, only behind Donovan Strauss. But to the point about the inside and the outside of the racetrack, Jeff McConey, do you expect the outside group to come in as this race progresses, or do you think we're going to see drivers try and stick to the bottom all night long?
Get up there and get up there now. I don't know what these guys are doing, but you run the outside here at Bristol. I was talking to Brian LaPrade beforehand, and I told him, I want you on that outside wall. I want you giving it a kiss every couple laps if you need to stay up near it. Get as close to that wall and stay up there. What you need to do is run the top. He just did just that, made 2 passes. Breyer, if you're listening, and I know you are, remember what I told you. I want you buying that wall dinner because you're banging that rear end on it. You have to run the wall here. It's the only way to make passes. It will stay strong even when someone's on your inside. Outside line is the way to get around here. When someone figures that out and gets up there, it's going to be a freight train at the top.
It's so much easier to carry momentum up there, and it's something we see in particular in Class A racing. You already see most of the field right up along the fence, but here in these trucks, seems like, at least for now, Josh Lee, the bottom is the way to go as we get a good look at Austin Yarborough for Elliott Sadler Esports Racing in his Toyota Tundra with a famous spotter who might know a thing or two about this place atop the box for him tonight.
Definitely does. Elliott Sadler is spotting for Austin Yarborough tonight, and Elliott does know a thing or two about getting around the Bristol Motor Speedway, and he's always such a big supporter of eNASCAR. He's been a supporter of his esports team, so great to see him actually getting on top of the box and helping out Austin Yarborough tonight. Gonna need that help as he powers around another race truck and racing from P15 right now. Good look at Parker Retzlaff. I think somebody that we haven't talked about yet, and a bit surprising we haven't really talked too much about him because he is a short track driver. He races in the ARCA Menard Series East, also does some super late models, some tour modified stuff, and known as a short track racer in the sim and outside of the sim. He's running in 2nd place right now, but Ethan Lane seems to have his number as they race onto the front straightaway now. Lane doing a really good job at holding this lead by about 3/10. They're still running the bottom line. I don't think Jeff McConey is too big of a fan of that, but seems to be working for both of them as they race on to lap number 22.
Parker Retzlaff, we haven't necessarily talked about per se in a spotlight sense yet before you came on to Major Points, Josh, but that's also because we talk about him nearly every week because he's running up near the front every week. 4th in points entering this evening, and with a good finish like this, would mathematically clinch a place in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series tonight. And just have to be 36 points or better ahead of 20th place at the end of the evening. If you can do that, then you are set to go, and you could, in theory, skip Phoenix if you wanted, and you'd still be good to go and on your way to the Contenders Series. Strauss, LaPrade, Retzlaff, Bias, Mercurio, and DeMerchant are the 6 that are still eligible for that because Jordy Lopez Jr. has pulled it behind the wall and is officially our first retiree from this first of 2 races in round number 2, race number 6 for the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series. So, handful of drivers that have the opportunity to finish up the business tonight. This is one of them. Brian LaPrade, we go on board with that Ford F-150, the Ledford Billiard Supply Machine for Lockdown Racing in that 9th position, trying to go after Derek Bordeaux for 8th.
They race into the corner. LaPrade, similar to what we've seen from him this entire season, really consistent, running P9 right now, about 2.6 some odd seconds back from the lead, and we have a side-by-side battle between Alt and Conrath. Alt gonna win that one. Issues for Mitchell Hunt. He is gonna make his way into the pit lane. Don't know if that machine has damage, but now he's gonna manually disconnect from the race server. Mitchell Hunt is out of this race.
Looks to me like too much tape. It's very easy to do here. We're seeing the threshold be about 55% is too much, and he was driving, no damage on that front end of the truck. All of a sudden it blew up. I think he just had too much tape on it.
Justin Prince, do you have any updates from pit road on what might be the matter with Mitchell Hunt's machine?
Not too much in that regard yet, but keep in mind, drivers are starting to report already, without front end damage in some of these cases, that they're starting to have overheating issues. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Keep in mind as well, when some drivers in the eNASCAR race got damaged for the Coke Series just a few days ago, their temperature skyrocketed 20 degrees. So while you carry a lot of speed here and aerodynamics aren't as huge of a factor here, you get damage to the front nose of your truck, you're likely losing a lot of pace and or having to deal with those temps the rest of the run.
Garrett Maines for Elliott Sadler Esports was one of those drivers who suffered the temp issues that Justin just talked about. Got into an incident early on Tuesday night and had to clutch it on corner entries just to make sure that he had a motor to race with. We go on board with another ESC driver. This is Brendan Kohler trying to get underneath Garrett Conrath, and this would be for the 13th position, working their way down the backstretch.
And Connor Horn going to join this fight as well. To the bottom goes Kohler, who we're on board with now. You can see the 12 of Garrett Conrath on the outside. They go back into one. You can see that just lunge to the bottom for Brendan Kohler, trying to get at least side by side with Conrath, and it looks like side by side now with the 10 of Connor Horn. Majority of the field starting to find themselves single file, a couple of battles here and there. Cody Bias getting by Brian LaPrat up in front of this group, but now Connor Horn trying to power around Brendan Kohler. Saw the rear deck lid of Garrett Conrath there for a moment, had to jump out of it. Contact made and spinning on the front straightaway. We have another caution out on the racetrack. Horn slams the wall. So also slamming into him is Frank DeAngelis.
Fabulous Frank DeAngelis in trouble, and the very Hornet-esque Chevy Silverado up into the fence. He's one of the trucks that comes away worse for wear out of this. We get a good look at this replay, and I think classic Bristol racing incident is about what you can say there, and probably not much more or less, Jeff.
Yeah, that's Bristol for you. This is a tough little racetrack. You can easily drift up a little bit too much. You can stay down and accidentally pinch someone on corner exit. Very, very easy to run into someone else here, and that was just a very unfortunate incident. But Frank DeAngelis there tried his best to avoid it, went low, and all of a sudden there's a truck in front of him.
Tough luck for Frank DeAngelis throughout the second round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Meanwhile, Justin Prince, leaders are headed your way down pit road for the first time.
First time taking service throughout the night, and keep in mind, this is one singular lane with that blue line through turns 3 and 4, which will mean these drivers will make that slow roll. For Blake McCandless, he's been very comfortable despite having the rear end damage to his respective truck. His machine has been able to rotate around 12.5 seconds of damage to his machine. Other than that, no major issues for that side. For Brian LaPrat, he has reported his truck is driving like a school bus. That was moments before the caution flag. And for LaPrat, keep in mind, his prep was a little off for Bristol, he told me, because he didn't do much testing with Wednesday because of various updates, but also because Thursday morning last week, he was coming back from a trip from Richmond last weekend. So he has been grinding since then. He's off and away with the rest of the drivers off pit road.
LaPrat with a good stop, but it's Ethan Lane who will lead everyone off of pit road as they were. Then Retzlaff, Norton, and Casey Tucker with a good stop to go up into P5 as the field will shuffle out. We're going to take a quick break and be back with more coverage. This is the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series for the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway on Podium Esports.
This is our series,
So many different pieces that you have to watch out for.
where the stakes are always higher,
$300,000.
where virtual meets reality,
How bad do you want it?
They're wasting no time getting at it.
where the best thrive and the flawless win. This is the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series for the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway. Pace cars off. We're going to go green flag racing on lap 43 of 200 as Ethan Lane leads us back across the stripe. Retzlaff settles into second, Norton to third, and then Casey Tucker racing alongside Blake McCandless for fourth.
Battle for the lead. Retzlaff made a peek to the bottom. How is the outside line now going to work for Ethan Lane? He powers around Parker Retzlaff to keep that lead. Ethan Lane is on rails right now, able to hold off the short track extraordinaire of Parker Retzlaff. It's Tucker, Norton, and Peterson now the top five as Peterson goes to the outside of McCandless.
Peterson already finding his way up on the high line, just like you said, Jeff McConey, and given that he started ninth, not necessarily a bad run for him.
No, not at all. And right now, Blake McCandless is going to jump on the train. He's going to go to the outside, get a really strong run on corner exit, carry that momentum into turns 1 and 2. Now he's on that outside. If he can just get to that outside of the 25 in the center of the corner on exit, he'll have that pass locked down, no problem. He's going to get there right about now. He's got that spot soon. Watch.
Kligerman Sport Driver working his way to the high line. And Josh, this is the kind of track that Blake McCandless likes the challenge of. He's, I know for a fact, we've spoken with him many times, both on air and off air, and he's not necessarily one to love the 1.5 miles or love the big plate tracks, but you get to a place where you have to control the throttle and baby it around here, and Bristol certainly counts as one of those places. Here, Richmond, Rockingham, places of that ilk, that's where he tends to perform better because those are also the tracks that he likes the most. So in that sense, not a huge surprise that he is currently the hardest charger in this field, having climbed 20 spots from his 24th place position on the starting grid.
I was about to mention Blake McCandless at Rockingham because this race really reminds me a lot of Rockingham and a lot of Blake McCandless at Rockingham, where he was running the wall, really being one of the only drivers running up there. And right now he's running the middle line to the top line, and look at him cutting his way through the field. He gets by Casey Tucker for P3. But further on back, everybody just kind of fighting to see what they've got inside of those trucks. Already about 150 laps to go. Time is ticking down incredibly quickly. Before you know it, we're going to be halfway through this race. Before you know it, we're only going to have a handful of laps to go. So they need to make sure that they are on top of the game. Like Jeff McConey mentioned earlier, this race requires full focus from everybody in this field. They better have it, or else they're going to be already behind the 8 ball, even though we're still in the first half of this race.
And full focus because it does move quickly. It is a race that sneaks up on you more so than I think a lot of the other races in this series. As you get a good look at the battle here for, I called about 7th, 8th, 9th on the racetrack. Will Norton, Brian LaPrade, Cody Bias, all in the mix here. We'll go on board with Ethan Lane, though, and keep an eye on Parker Retzlaff because Retzlaff is stalking Lane's Chevy Silverado and hasn't really let him go. It's maybe a 10th, maybe half a truck length between the two cars.
Well, James, you mentioned that these laps are going to tick off incredibly quickly. They go by the start-finish line, and our timing doesn't catch up with the lap counter until they are exiting the turn. Right there, you just saw it, middle of turn 2. That is how quickly these laps go down. And you can see already back to turns 3 and 4, already back across the line. So Ethan Lane, even though he's holding out Parker Retzlaff, it might not feel like a long time, but he's holding him off for multiple laps, laps on laps on laps that he is holding off Parker Retzlaff. Each lap that gets ticked off is better for Ethan Lane, and as long as he can hold Parker Retzlaff behind him, doesn't look like Retzlaff has much to contend with Ethan Lane unless that 42 is starting to hold back a little.
Here's a look at Justin Bolton a little bit further back in the field. Now we'll slide up towards Dylan Jones and Christian Peterson, two drivers who fighting for their place into the top 20. CP came into tonight 16th. Entering the evening, and Dylan Jones 34th. So CP in a little bit better situation than Jones, but I think both of them would take a top 10, maybe a top 5 finish if they can grab a few more spots like this, Jeff.
Absolutely. There is a lot of opportunity here to make up ground. You can look at Bristol like a more skilled Talladega. Talladega requires a lot of skill in drafting and working your way and making runs and everything. But you can also make up a lot of points there, and you can lose a lot of points there as well, getting caught up in a wreck that's someone else's fault. But at a place like Bristol, you really have the fate of everything in your own hands. Now, there's a lot of work in avoiding wrecks. You can get caught up in other people's messes, but Bristol is a skill track that separates the men from the boys. You have to be a really strong driver here. You have to be a really aggressive driver here. You can't make friends, just like you really can't make friends at the White Flag of a Talladega race. So we'll have to see here. I really think these drivers need to be more aggressive, that are towards the back in points, that are towards the back out on the track. You have to be aggressive. You got to stick the nose in there. You have to make that move, push the truck a little bit harder, and try and make it in. You are racing for your chance at the iRacing, at the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, right? That becomes a job at that point. You are racing the best of the best, and you can make over $100,000. It's a $330,000 prize pool. It's not a game anymore at that point, right? That is real money on the line. And if you're going to try and race your way into it, you got to be aggressive. You have to make these moves starting now.
It's an interesting contrast, I think, Josh, between Bristol and Talladega in the sense that Jeff is talking about, where, so we get a good look at Nick Morse coming down pit road, wonder if there might be troubles for him. How about a yellow flag? So, yes, there were some troubles with Nick Morse, and we'll see if there was anything else that led to that yellow. But to the point that I was trying to make, Talladega is more about the chess match, and it's not necessarily about your skill in driving your vehicle so much as it is about putting your vehicle in the right position in relation to everybody else. But Nick Morse here down on the apron. We'll see if he made some sort of contact. It looks like he got to Dylan Auld a little bit there. And then I think might have lost the motor. It looks like maybe engine temp's too high, like Jeff McConey was saying. But yeah, issues for Nick Morse. And this is a track, to finish the point I was making, that does a little bit more about driving skill. Not necessarily where you are in relation to the other vehicles around you, but about how well you can get around the track. And yep, you hear the pop there. So pretty clear. Nick Morse, engine busted on lap 67.
And like you mentioned, with this being a much more of a track that drivers need to attack, we've heard this track described a lot as a driver's track, which means that they need to be on top of their game. This is going to be a test of driver skill, and track position can be important, but it really only becomes important when you are surrounded by lapped vehicles. If you have no lapped vehicles around you like we have right now, you're only racing around drivers that you are racing on the track. Not really a big deal if you lose a bit of track position, because we saw Blake McCandless gain like 7 to 8 spots on one restart. It is not crazy to think that they can cut their way through the field if they have the skill and the truck to do so.
Everybody down on pit road. Justin Prince, any updates from the field?
In regards to what happened to Nick Morse, again, for those who do not know, left his position with his previous organization within the past week. His truck ended up getting involved with a 0x incident and ended up getting some damage. That's now hampered him. A close race off the pit road. Ethan Lane getting the edge after the commitment code with the distance for the first lane. Keep in mind, it's been reported that Blake McCandless, some of those drivers saying good on fuel, while Parker Retzlaff has been booked for speeding.
Parker Retzlaff with a big penalty. You see all the trucks going around him on the outside, and that will drop him, I believe, to the tail end of the lead lap, which by my math puts him 24th, just behind Brendan Kohler for this upcoming restart. A reminder that tonight's broadcast of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series on Podium Esports is brought to you by McConey Setup Shop, your home for everything racing and the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports. From Legends to Cup cars, they have you covered, with dirt setups available for late models, modifieds, wing sprints, road setups available for F3, LMP2, and GT4 cars as well. The MSS Paint Shop is opened at McConeySetupShop.com/paint booth to help you look good while going fast. And those paint schemes are available for any car. You can get yours starting at just $20 today. Coaching is also available with professional drivers such as former eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion Zach Novak, Jimmy Mullis, River Hayes, and more. At McConey Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories. And you can visit their website at McConeySetupShop.com for more information. As Ethan Lane will be in control of this field. Lights are off on the pace car. We'll go back green flag racing on lap 71. And Jeff, we might need to add the IR01 after the Force Dynamics Stellara iRacing Grand Prix Championship debut earlier today at Watkins Glen. Anybody who caught that race, go back and watch the replay. That was impressive stuff at Watkins Glen, no?
Absolutely. Watkins Glen is an amazing track. That's an amazing car, but not quite as cool as trucks at Bristol, as we are now back green. And boy, look at up at the front, Blake McCandless. I think he might have something here for Ethan Lane, but Casey Tucker, Will Norton, Derek Bordeaux are going to have something to say about it.
Of note, McCandless has said that he's not even pushing this truck all that much in the early stages. Almost surprised that he's running this high up in the running order, but he'll take it and go to second and go ahead of Will Norton, who's as high up in the field as we've seen him all night. Same for Casey Tucker, who's working the inside of Dylan Jones, and then Derek Bordeaux, Briar LaPrade, Christian Peterson, Cody Bias, names that we've talked about all season long, right there in the back half of the top 10, Josh.
You can see just how tight this racing gets throughout the run. Everybody's still sitting in a hornet's nest, from Dylan C. Jones back to the battle between Derek Bordeaux and Casey Tucker. LaPrade's at the tail end of that one. He goes to the outside now of the 28 of Casey Tucker on that inside line, 2x2, a couple rows deep. Garrett Conrad, I'm still very impressed with him holding on to that top 10 spot even after being involved in the first incident of the night. We go on board with him, almost making a little bit of contact with number 23, but as they race their way through the corner, Conrad's gonna get loose and into the wall. There's the commentator's curse we were looking for.
Oh, right on cue there as everybody behind him, I think, gets sideways, and that was Aaron Rodgers, who was one of the trucks involved, but the yellow flag is back out on the racetrack. And I think, Jeff McConey, we had another candidate for the Podium Esports Space Administration over between turns 1 and 2.
Yeehaw, cowboy. That was quite a wreck going on there, but this is where the drivers start to get nervous. This is where they start to get antsy now. We've had a couple cautions back to back to back. They're going, okay, I need to start taking advantage of all of these cautions, and I need to start making passes now on the few green flag laps we have. Then they start getting more aggressive. They get more aggressive, and then there's more caution. So now I said I wanted to see them more aggressive. This is good. Now we just need to dial it back, be smart and aggressive, and we can have a good run to the end here. That's my theory.
So Rodgers was the first one to go around. This actually started, I think, a little bit ahead of him, as we'll take a look at the replay with Conrath getting in the fence. Everybody checked up, and when Conrath was over in one, they tried to go 3 wide underneath him, and as Rodgers tried to avoid, I think that might have actually been Austin Yarbrough. Either he drove down or Ryan Hill came up. Couldn't quite tell which, but in either case, Hill and Rodgers make contact. They come together. Michael Frisch is nowhere to go. Parker Retzlaff just snuck through this. There's probably a great onboard available from Retzlaff's machine. And then I think Garrison Hogan was just able to get on the brakes and make sure he didn't get a piece of this, but it was pretty close for his Ford F-150.
That word definitely is just. And on board with Retzlaff, who got moved to the back of the field. A little bit of contact to that front right tire, excuse me. And it looked like he was actually the one that sort of sent that truck of Aaron Rodgers up into space and joining the SpaceX astronauts that took off last night, it seems.
Justin Prince, though, developments in the race lead. What more can you tell us?
As you can tell, there is a truck missing on this track, and that is your race leader. Ethan Lane has now dealt with technical issues. After leading every single lap, he has just dropped out of the session. Extremely unfortunate for a team that felt like they had race-winning pace tonight in a point situation they needed to do well in. The reactions across the board are from stunness from McCandless's camp to elation from Briar LaPrade because they see this as getting the top 5.
Biggest development of the night by a landslide. The most dreaded server message you could possibly get in a situation like Ethan's. The server disconnected due to incoming packet loss. Connection issues for Ethan Lane, and your race leader will have to reconnect to the server. We'll see how many laps down he is, but for someone who had so much riding on this evening and such high hopes for this evening, that is a gut punch or 2 or 3 or 4 in a row. You have to imagine, Josh Lee, that the stomach has dropped out on Ethan Lane and his team.
We talked about how close he was to the cut line. 3 points down. He could see a great finish ahead of him that could put him into the top 20. He could have just lost a spot in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series off of his internet dropping out. Just let that sink in for a moment.
A tough, bitter pill to swallow for Ethan Lane as Blake McCandless gets us back to green flag racing on lap 82. But now that Lane is gone, how will the rest of the field manage? And can Derek Bordeaux work with Cody Bias to make the high line work the way McCandless did to get to the front, Jeff?
Boy, I sure hope so. That outside line is so strong. We saw Blake McCandless drive from 24th all the way to 1st using the high line. We've seen drivers make passes on the outside all night. Cody Bias is going to be able to get past Briar LaPrade up on the outside. I don't know why these drivers aren't taking full advantage of it, but if you want to start making passes and work your way up through the field, it's time to start riding that wall.
Nearly an incident there with Brandon Cattell a little bit further back in the field off that restart, but he keeps it going. In the 16th spot is Cattell, as everybody in the top, really call it 10, has already gotten single file. You have to go back to Austin Yarborough, Parker Retzlaff, Dylan Alton Company, right where Cattell is at the back end of that group to find your first side-by-side battles in this field.
You mentioned Parker Retzlaff. I had to do a quick double take on that because he was just in the back before that last caution. We went some odd 3-4 laps, maybe 5 under green before we got under the yellow flag. He's already up to P12. What a run right now for Parker Retzlaff. I will say, now with Ethan Lane out of this race, he's back into the race server. He's going to be somewhere around 12, 13 laps down when he gets back onto the racing surface. I think Parker Retzlaff now is the favorite to win this race. Blake McCandless has been fast, but Parker Retzlaff is always just in another zip code when it comes to short tracks. I think if we see him get some clean air, it's going to be all the 42 out the front of this field.
He's got some work, though, to get that clean air. That's the issue. Retzlaff is buried in the 12th position, a little bit further back in this field, while McCandless has that clean air up front. Also, further updates with the Ethan Lane situation. It was a computer issue officially for Lane that caused the disconnect, but the iRacing server doesn't really know the difference between an internet issue and a computer issue. A disconnect is a disconnect in its eyes, so he comes off and comes down, and we'll get back on the racetrack here. He is back in the server, back running again, but 4 laps down. Not impossible. If he can get past Ryan Hill, he would, in theory, be the lucky, or rather 9 laps down. So a little bit further, actually, than I initially thought for Ethan Lane. Apologies there. But he's got work to do, and it may just be a matter of riding around. But, yeah, that could well be the difference between a spot in the Contender Series and a ride home and a trip maybe to next season's eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series for Ethan Lane. A very, very tough, difficult, and unlucky break for him as McCandless still leads. But how about Dylan Jones starting to look up high? We haven't said much about the white 25, but he's up there a little bit further back. Tanner Love trying to find a spot, Jeff.
Tanner Love looking up towards the front, but a lot of these drivers that are up towards the front now have started towards the rear. Blake McCandless is leading the race, started 24th. Dylan Jones, 18th, up to 4th. Briar LaPrade, 16th to 6th. He's now battling with Christian Peterson. Casey Tucker, 14th to 8th. So a lot of drivers are moving their way up towards the front. Again, I sound like a broken record, I know, but any pass we've seen tonight has come on the outside line. Christian Peterson just blew the doors off of Briar LaPrade by going up to that outside line. I think if we see some of these drivers start working their way up there, Parker Retzlaff, once he catches these guys ahead of him, he's already up to 9th. He's definitely going to be hot on the heels of Blake McCandless.
Just looking at lap times here, everybody's largely similar, save for McCandless himself, who was about a 10th off of everyone else. And as they come back across the stripe, still pretty close, 15.3, 15.3, 15.4. So everybody's sort of in that range. But most importantly, Josh Lee, we're starting to see the tires fall off as we approach halfway.
Definitely starting to see that. Stints throughout the field range anywhere from 31 laps to 30 to 20 laps on Brian Blackford, a little bit further back, 19 on Omar Diallo, 9 on Ryan Hill, and 11 on Ethan Lane as he gets back onto the racetrack 9 laps down. So those tires are going to start to show their age and really becomes a strategy in pit road. And I'll let Jeff McConey talk about what he knows best, and that is strategies. I'm assuming they're going to want tires soon, Jeff, because we're already crossing over into halfway, over 30 laps on the stints. They're going to want tires before they want fuel.
Before we get to Jeff McConey's thoughts on tires, let's make sure that we get to the iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more by logging on to iRacing.com. Blake McCandless, your race leader with 101 laps complete at the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway in race number 6 of round number 2 of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Will Norton holds the 2nd position. Derek Bordeaux currently rides in 3rd, and Dylan Jones holds 4th. 5th is where you'll find Cody Bias. Christian Peterson currently racing the 6th spot. 7th belongs to Casey Tucker. 8th is where you'll find Parker Retzlaff. 9th is where Brian LaPrade sits, and completing the top 10 as of now is Justin Bolton. Josh Lee.
For the back, Santiago Gutierrez, P11. It's Austin Yarborough in 12th with Dylan Alt, Tanner Love, and Garrett Conrath. Rounding out your top 15, Brandon Cattell, Brendan Kohler, Omar Diallo, Garrison Ogan, and Brian Blackford going to round out the top 20 as they currently run on the racetrack.
In 21st, you have Michael P. Frisch. Ryan Hill sits 22nd, 5 laps down. Ethan Lane, 9 down in 23rd, but he's got some good pace here. Connor Horn in the pits in 24th, as is Aaron Rodgers now, 25th, 29 laps down. Frank DeAngelis has taken it to the garage and disconnected. Nicholas Morse is 41 laps down, but still sitting and waiting. He could make up a spot or 2 or 3. Mitchell Hunt has also taken to the garage, as well as Jordy Lopez Jr. out of this race in 29th.
And that completes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world. Get on track today at iRacing.com. Trouble for Garrett Conrath, I noticed just as we were coming out of the midway race break, caught the fence over in turn 4. I believe it has dropped back to 19th, so the struggles continue for the Nexus Esports driver in the Ford F-150, and just bounced off the fence ever so slightly again there. You saw the sparks come off the right side of his race truck. McCandless still in front of all of this, and everybody just sort of holding serve, save for Dylan Jones, who's working up top. But Jeff McConey, let's go back to you on the point that Josh Lee was making before we had our midway race break. How are these drivers trying to manage tires? If you are doing it in an optimal manner, what do you think is the best strategy to manage tires? And where's your mindset at when you're thinking about the rubber portion of this race?
Well, you gotta just drive it. Drive the thing hard, be aggressive, and do everything you can out there. If you get a caution, great, come down and get more tires. But do not come down pit road under green unless that thing is out of fuel and you are coasting it. You don't need more gas, you don't need any more tires, and if you want them, well, that's too damn bad, as they say in holes. You gotta just run what you brung, and if you burn the tires off of it, whose fault is that, you know? You have to be aggressive here, you have to drive it hard.
That there's not really any room to sit back because this race really isn't all that long. All of a sudden, here we are, and we're approaching lap 125 of 200, clicking these laps off little by little as everybody in that front four still well buttoned up. But good battles here throughout the track. Brian LaPrade in a good fight. Lots of trucks around him. 14th, 15th, 16th. Omar Diallo is there. Tanner Love is there. Brendan Kohler in that mix, and Ryan Hill as well.
And you're getting a good look at Brian LaPrade there in key number 16 now as Brendan Kohler goes by. LaPrade's been complaining about that truck for most of the night. It's not surprising to see him running about mid-pack, but it's not too great of an issue if Brian LaPrade has a bit of a bad night here at Bristol. 62 good to the cut line. He's not going to drop under the cut line with a bad finish here at Bristol. All this is going to do is maybe just make him a little bit more hungry when it comes to Phoenix and need a little bit of a better finish when it comes to Phoenix. If he has 2 bad races in a row, that could lead him outside of the cut line, but one bad race, pack it up and go race Phoenix is not going to be a huge deal for the 35 machine of Brian LaPrade.
it might not be the way he wants to lock himself in to the Contender Series, but he's very, very close and right on the edge as I look at things here. A 62-point gap, so plenty of space to work with so long as he finishes on the lead lap at this stage. Brian Blackford's the last truck on the lead lap in 21st, and I think it would take a finish somewhere in the ballpark about 26th, 27th for LaPrade in a worst-case scenario to fall underneath that 35-point cut line that we're looking at for the top handful of drivers in points. So LaPrade, even with the bad run tonight, might be in good shape. I think the tricky thing for him and the thing he'll lament is just not having a good race, not having a good momentum to sew it up when you want to, and maybe turning around and heading towards Phoenix with a bit of a different mindset as you see CP and Parker Retzlaff duking it out for the 5th position.
And here comes Parker Retzlaff. We talked about him. He had a speeding penalty in pit road, went all the way to the back. Take a look at this. Just punched his ticket into the top 5 as now Casey Tucker goes to the inside of Christian Peterson. Still a 1.8 second gap between Retzlaff and McCandless, but I gotta think now that McCandless is starting to see Parker Retzlaff pop up in that relative, he is not going to be feeling too comfortable out there in the lead soon.
Well, Retzlaff is there, but does he need to worry maybe more about Derek Bordeaux or Dylan Jones or Will Norton? Because Bordeaux in particular, Jeff McConey, has been dropping down to the bottom and making it work. And we just saw Will Norton go down to that inside line to cover. So I wonder if these drivers are trying to find speed as best they can.
You're welcome to search around, but there's one recipe that's tried and true that got Blake McCandless all the way out to the front with a .656 second lead. Right now, Blake is out front and turning some quick laps. His last one was an 8.97. Parker Retzlaff was an 8.60. Parker has to get around 3 more trucks and, oh yeah, make up another 2 seconds to get to Blake. If this thing runs green to the end, I'm putting my money on Blake McCandless. So be aware. You can make the inside work. You can try it. You can do whatever you want. You can burn yourself up doing it. But if I'm Will Norton, Dylan Jones, Derek Bordeaux, I'm getting up on that outside line, especially if I'm Will Norton. I'm defending, and you're going to do everything you can to catch Blake McCandless ahead of you, because if you don't start pushing it now, then you're going to have a whole mirror full of Parker Retzlaff.
A reminder that tonight's broadcast of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series is brought to you by the folks at Podium Esports, and plenty of advertising opportunities available if you are interested. There's a plan for every budget and can custom tailor solutions to suit your needs best. For more information on the wide variety of partnership possibilities, send an email to admin@podiumesports.com or visit our website at www.podiumesports.com as well. Blake McCandless still in control of this. Will Norton, Dylan Jones, Derek Bordeaux, Parker Retzlaff, your top 5. Justin Prince, any updates from these teams as we approach lap 150 and get towards the 3/4 mark of this race?
Well, when it comes to, first of all, Blake McCandless, the race leader, he has felt like this could heat up for the battle up front. Once they reach lap traffic, that is a bit of concern for some of these drivers. But the caution is out of the racetrack, James, an issue.
Garrison Hogan is the man who is around over in turn number, call it end of turn 1, beginning of turn 2, and old tires or too much gas, but just lost it, Jeff McConey. Simple as that.
Yeah, looks like he just entered the corner. That he was sliding around beforehand. That right rear might have been burnt up because that thing just goes around on him. Nothing you can do except lock it down and pray you don't do any damage to the front end.
So he goes around, maybe a slight bit of damage to the nose of his Ford F-150, but otherwise not the worst case in the world. As we'll see McCandless and company come down pit road for service in the near future. And Justin Prince, any expectations from these drivers? Any more updates that you can feed us? You were cut off there that last time, so we'll give you another chance to make sure you've got all your news and notes in.
I was going to say one of the drivers who's been running up front all night is Derek Bordeaux. His camp has said they are feeling good. They're trying to keep the right rear on it, in particular for the long run. That was a concern for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers just a couple days ago. Their goal is to try and get a top 10 to make sure they can lock in a top 20. Meanwhile, McCandless has made his stop down in the back straightaway, off and away for his service. Continuing to roll, he continues to still be surprised on having that backstretch pit road box as a result of his rough qualifying performance. The rest of the drivers started to make their stops along the front straight away for their service. And you talked about the moving of Parker Retzlaff. He said he put in around 1,400 laps, and it's been a race he's been looking forward to all season. Race off the pit lane, 3 wide.
A little bit absurd, I noticed there, but looks like McCandless was able, I think, to just get maybe third, shall we say? Because Dylan Jones and Will Norton were right there, and they beat McCandless off of pit road, so we are going to have a new race leader by the time we come back to the green flag for restarts, Jeff.
That changes everything, because let me tell you, not only do you make passes on the outside, you defend on the outside as well. I know I sound like a broken record talking about the outside line. Jeff, why do you care so much about the outside line? Because that's the way to get around here. That's the way you make passes. But I'll tell you what, it's also the way you hold other people up behind you. If I'm Dylan Jones, I'm running that wall. I don't care where they're running. I don't care if they put it in the middle. I don't care what they do. Does not matter at all. Put it up on the outside line, because you carry so much momentum on exit. The only way you're going to get past there, if you're Dylan Jones, Will Norton, or someone else, is if you make a mistake, you have to let off, you bump the wall, something like that. Really, just put it out there, hang it on that wall, and you'll be able to hold on. I think you can even hold off Parker Retzlaff, Blake McCandless, 2 of the fastest trucks out here, just by keeping it up on the outside.
Everybody going door to door. We're double file. We'll get the restart on lap 136 of 200. Dylan Jones, Will Norton, Blake McCandless, Parker Retzlaff, Derek Bordeaux, your race leaders, as we come to just outside of the final quarter of the race. As these drivers will go back to green flag racing, we will quiet ourselves so that you can hear the sounds of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway. So that was a bit of an adventure on that restart. I saw a few aggressive moves. Blake McCandless probably with the most aggressive one, but to the point that Jeff has made all night long, have to get up to the high line to make it happen, and he drove right up to the fence, right in front of Derek Bordeaux, just about got his nose chopped off, and now is fighting Will Norton to try and get the third spot.
They continue to fight, and while we were going away for the Sounds of iRacing segment there, a handful of drivers getting up into the wall and having to save it. Those cold tires, they take a little bit to really start working in that heat, really start working in that grip. Starting to see that from everybody now in the field as Dylan almost makes contact with Brian LaPrade to the inside of Will Norton. Tries to go Blake McCandless. McCandless going to offer that up that high side. So is Tucker, Bias, Bordeaux going to be stuck in the bottom. Look at Austin Yarborough. He started way down in the order. He's up to P8 looking for more.
He's looking for more, but the man looking for the most right now is Parker Retzlaff, who you talked about earlier on in this race. Josh Lee, you said watch for Retzlaff and his Toyota Tundra to make the charge to the front. He was about maybe 6 or 7 when you made that call. Here he is now in second and all over the rear bumper of Dylan Jones to try and get this race lead as we approach 50 laps to go.
Parker Retzlaff. There was the ARCA Menard Series race here today at Real Life Bristol. He did not compete in that, but he has been cutting his teeth on real life short tracks across the East Coast in the ARCA Menard Series East, looking for just another win when it comes to Road to Pro. It hasn't been the storybook season I think we all thought from Parker Retzlaff. One win the entire season from him came at round number 1 at Las Vegas, an intermediate track of all things. Now that he's back on a short track, we were expecting him to be the favorite when it comes to Martinsville, Richmond, and more. He hasn't gotten a win since round number 1. He goes to the outside for the lead. Give the lead over to Parker Retzlaff here at Bristol. 55 to go.
He made that look so easy. Just got to the outside quarter panel of Dylan Jones and just blitzed him down the straightaway. So Retzlaff is clear to the race lead. McCandless is in second. He may have to go down to the inside to make this happen. I would figure at some point that Jones would want to cover that top line because Retzlaff passed him like he was just standing completely still in the middle of the straight there, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, if only someone could have predicted such an occurrence. If only someone had said that's exactly what would happen. I don't know what to do anymore. If only someone had that foresight. Anyways, now Blake McCandless is coming up here on second place. He's gaining little by little by little, running the middle line, getting good runs on exit. I think we're going to see Blake McCandless pull the same move, get to the outside of Dylan Jones, and work his way around. That's if he can get out there, though. Will Norton is struggling back there. We saw on the initial restart, he almost spun that thing. He was sideways looking at the inside wall, checking out the food stands in the infield, but somehow, some way got that thing pointed straight again. If he can get that thing rolling, he's got 50 laps to get it to the front.
And Dylan Jones has decided to cover. He's all the way up the racetrack, and that's got McCandless pretty much right up along the fence, but he can't find a way to get to the outside of Jones to make this pass for second happen. All the while, Austin Yarbrough for Elliott Sadler Esports, who we've not said too much about, now running in the best position he has all night long. We talked about how McCandless started 24th. Yarbrough started 27th on this grid and is driven up to the 4th position. That makes him the current hardest charger in the field tonight. And if McCandless and Jones keep on fighting, what is currently a 2-truck battle could become a 3-truck battle very quickly.
Yarbrough is closing the gap on these guys inside of 2/10 now as Blake McCandless gets a bit up out of the groove. Dylan Jones sitting there in second place, just looking to hold on to that second spot for the moment. Dylan Jones, another one of those drivers, has not been the season I think he wanted or was looking for when it comes to Road to Pro. Nowhere even close to the cut line of the top 20. He's too far down the order, but can still finish off round 2 of the qualifying series here in eNASCAR Road to Pro with some solid finishes. He's looking at a solid finish here with 44 to go.
Retzlaff still in control of this. They passed the lap machine of Ryan Hill, which is going to force everybody to go single file, so it might string out this group and kill off some of the battles that we've had, though don't tell that to, I believe that's Christian Peterson, who got to the outside of Cody Bias and is now looking for the 7th position on that preferred high line.
On board to the inside of the number 55, and we hop up to the battle between Peterson and Bias. Cody Bias, another one of those drivers looking for a good finish to bump him up a little bit more in the points, but unfortunately not enough. Good finish is not enough for Bias, and I think 2 wins would just barely be enough for Cody Bias. It has not been the qualifying series round number 2 that he would have liked, even after coming off of a win from Charlotte in round number 1 in the 5th race of round number 1, or excuse me, that'll be the 6th race of round number 1, the win for Cody Bias. And here's Ethan Lane trying to get out of the way of your race leaders. Austin Yarbrough to the bottom, looking to get around Blake McCandless. Remember back to Yarbrough, we didn't see it here on twitch.tv/Podium Esports, but the guys over on Podium 2 saw it in race number 2 from Knoxville. He was the winner of that race. I don't know how many distinctions you can pull in between Bristol and Knoxville, probably a good bit, but seems pretty similar in the way they race this track. Is Austin Yarbrough just going to force his way to the bottom, trying to get around McCandless for a podium spot.
And now McCandless is going to do to Yarbrough what Dylan Jones was doing to Blake McCandless some 10-15 laps ago, where McCandless is going to keep hold of that high line and force Yarbrough to go to the inside, which we've seen hasn't necessarily worked unless you've got some kind of truck with some kind of speed. All the while, Parker Retzlaff continues to stretch out his race lead as we go on board with Will Norton, who's in 5th place, just looking ahead at the battles we're talking about.
On board with Will Norton here. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say, this is where the money is made. We've got about 40 laps to go in this race, under 40 now, and you need to start pushing it. The time for friends was really over at the drop of the green flag, but especially now, you have got to be defensive. Don't let someone else take away your line. Don't let someone else take a position. There's no more, oh, it's a long race, we'll get it back later. It's 200 laps here, but they will fly by real quick at 15 seconds a lap at Bristol. Parker Retzlaff pulling away at the front. Dylan Jones kind of keeping pace. They're running very similar lap times, but Parker's still pulling just a hair. Blake McCandless needs to hold off Austin Yarborough if he's going to be able to stay in this top 3, because if Yarborough gets by, it's going to be all over on catching the top 2, that's for sure.
Going to be very, very over. And maybe might be over for the top 3, top 4 spots here. This is your first really good battle on the racetrack. Will Norton and Christian Peterson continuing to run the upper line of this racetrack, now switching to go to the bottom as Norton covers the top side. It's a little bit of the chess match that we usually see at the plate races that we're seeing now here at Bristol, as they keep bouncing between the high line and the low line, just trying to figure out where they need to be. But that will all change because Omar Diallo, I believe, is the one responsible for this latest yellow flag on lap 169. Looks like a little bit of contact with Brandon Cattell coming out of turn 4.
Yeah, it looked like Diallo just came a little bit too far up out of the groove. There's the contact made with the 80 of Cattell. Now the question is, who is going to come into the pit lane? McConey mentioned that you wouldn't want to pit under green, but if a caution comes out, get down, grab fresh tires. 38 laps on everybody's tires right now. I think pit road is going to be a busy place down by JP.
Yep, everybody needs to hit pit road. That's my guess. If I'm the crew chief, I'm calling them in here.
Well, Justin Prince, how about you take us through it? Let us know what the leaders are going to do for what could be the final pit stop of the race.
A very critical time for these drivers. Keep in mind, with there being under 30 to go, and remember, this is a time where drivers were fearing this in the eNASCAR race. One big send for Austin Yarborough to get side by side with Blake McCandless for the pit entry. This could spell a bit of disaster, a bit of a squeeze as Yarborough makes his way to the pit box. Keep in mind as well, these drivers have been feeling fairly comfortable. McCandless has not been happy with that caution flag. He felt like he was in a great winning position before that previous yellow flag. He has picked up slightly more damage. He's off and away. One final set for Blake McCandless. Everyone else starting to make the roll down the front straightaway for their side of the pit boxes as they try and complete their service this time by. Slow roll for Derek Bordeaux and company. Up on the jacks goes Bordeaux with the start of the lane. Norton already off and away with service. He's taken 2 tires to take the race lead. Garrison Hogan got the lucky dog. He's come up and in.
That's the move. 2 tires is absolutely the move. We've seen how a slower truck can hold off a fast one. We saw Parker Retzlaff, as soon as he got to the lead, he pulled away by a second. But until that point where he got around, he couldn't even make a move. If you're Will Norton and you've got those 2 tires, man, run that high line. You've heard it before. If you're on 2 tires out there, be defensive, run the high line, don't let them by, and you can definitely hold them off here. I think that's the smart move.
Big moves to talk about, big finish coming. We'll bring you all the action after a word from our partners, but don't go anywhere. You're watching coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway on Podium Esports. When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that McConey Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flags Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at McConey Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, McConey Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to McConeySetupShop.com and learn why McConey Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing. And remember, at McConey Setup Shop, there are...
Green flag back out in the air. Norton, Retzlaff, McCandless, and Santiago Tires up in the top 5 as they go back to racing at Bristol Motor Speedway with big moves on the inside, big moves on the outside. Retzlaff is clear. Norton to second. McCandless to third. Tires, Yarbrough in a good battle with Christian Peterson and Casey Tucker.
They fight on to the back straightaway. McCandless able to get around Santiago Tires. Talk about a gamble with the 2 tires for Santi Tires. He is inside of the top 20 when it comes to the cut line. Did not need to gamble. He went for it here late in the race at Bristol. Retzlaff back to the lead. Will Norton now trying to hold off on Blake McCandless. 3 trucks all running together. McCandless, the first truck in this group on 4 tires. The first one in the field is Parker Retzlaff pulling away.
Retzlaff is beginning to walk this group here, stretching it out. He's been faster than Will Norton by a solid 2-3 tenths every time they come across the start-finish line. And McCandless has not found a way to get around Will Norton just yet.
Continuing to fight, and McCandless stuck on that outside line. Seems to be the line McCandless wants to run, but with Norton running the middle, that is going to force McCandless to the bottom to be able to make any sort of move, because you can see right as he comes up the track, he's trying to cover off the spot on McCandless. On board with Brian LaPrat as Derek Bordeaux is starting to fall down the order. Caution flag flies, Blackford's around.
Brian Blackford, indeed, in the Chevy Silverado is the one who goes sideways. A little bit of help there, I believe, from Dylan Jones. We had a good look here at the replay, but this gives folks the opportunity to reset, and we'll have another crack at this restart in a few laps' time. But yeah, simple incident there. 2 drivers getting together in the outside near turn 3.
That E-Racer 33 going for a bit of a ride with Brian Blackford on board. Jeff McConey, I got to wonder, you said every caution come in and get tires, but with 9-lap-old tires, are we really going to see anybody come in?
If you're in the back half of the field, yeah. I would say anyone behind Cattell, Jones, Diallo, Hogan, that's all fair game. You could come in, you could take tires. Will Norton is going to be, I think, someone that, he's not going to come in for tires, obviously, but someone that could make something happen here on this restart. If he's able to get as good a jump as Parker and stay on his outside, that would be good, but it's going to be really tough. The reason Parker took the lead so easily was because he started in second, got just as good a jump as Will Norton, and was able to make that outside work and get around. Now, Norton's going to be starting second, could have something here.
Let's note these drivers that are coming in for service, all with dinged up trucks, Justin Prince, but it's Dylan Alt, Brendan Kohler, and Brandon Cattell. Those are the 3 that I see. Have you spotted any more trucks that are coming in for service?
You also have Michael Frisch and Brian Blackford coming down for respective service. Keep in mind when it comes to Cattell, he had told me before this race that the preparation had been tough to try and make sure they had just enough to compete with the fast guys. They had thrown a lot at their respective truck in the past 24 hours. They were hoping for the bottom to come in for tonight. We've seen that come into play at times as the trends, as Jeff would say, have seen the bottom line be good for saving. That's come into play as this track is rubbered up.
Before we get to the restart, we'll tell you about some of the other events coming up in the world of Podium Esports throughout this month of September. We're back in action on Saturday night with the MSRA Premier Series from Bristol Motor Speedway. Coverage starts at 8 p.m. on twitch.tv/Podium2, as well as the Podium Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. Then head to the main Podium Esports Twitch channel right here for the SimMax Cup Series powered by MPI All-Star Race for Season 4. We'll have a 9:15 p.m. Eastern start Sunday night, September 19th. Tuesday night, September 21st, it's the Operation eMotorsport iRacing League from Watkins Glen International on the Oppo YouTube channel. And then the following week, big time racing across the board. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series penultimate race of the season from Talladega Superspeedway. We'll figure out which drivers advance to the championship four starting Tuesday, September 28th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on the iRacing Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube pages. PCA Sim Racing returns with the beginning of Series 7 from the 2008 scan of Silverstone, heading your way the following evening, Wednesday, September 29th at 9 p.m. Eastern on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel. And then our finale to the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Phoenix Raceway, 9 p.m. Thursday, September 30th on the main Podium Esports Twitch channel and twitch.tv/Podium2. 14 laps going to be left to duke this out, 15 rather, actually, as Parker Retzlaff will have the opportunity to lead us to green flag racing from Bristol. He does. Yarborough tried to get a jump on McCandless, couldn't quite get there, but can Blake McCandless clear Will Norton to get second? That's the big question.
They cannot. He's going to try and get up there, but forcing the door back open is Will Norton. Look at Austin Yarborough on the bottom. He might make it 3 wide as McCandless almost got shuffled in the middle line. Norton going to keep that high line. McCandless trying to come up and cover it. Not going to be able to do so. Where's Yarborough going to go? 3 wide for P2 as they go into 3.
3 wide for that second spot as McCandless and Norton bounce off of each other. Trucks wrecking in the back. That's going to bring out a yellow, but I think McCandless was able to get ahead and get either second or third. I think McCandless will hold P2, and he did just enough to be able to go to the outside of Will Norton, and that's a big spot for McCandless if he did come out of that mess, scored second when the yellow flag came out, because now he'll be starting not only alongside Retzlaff, but he'll be in that preferred outside lane, as we'll take a look at the incident and see what happened. A few trucks here in the back. I saw a lot of trucks bounce off of each other, but a lot of contact here further back in the field, and looks like one truck just gets loose, and it was close and then really bad for Brandon Cattell.
Yeah, bad night for Brandon Cattell. Definitely not going to be loving Tanner Love tonight here in the race from Bristol. But now this is going to change the scope of this restart, because everybody's tires are not really worn. They're definitely not new, and they're definitely going to be cooling down under this caution period. This is going to be one exciting restart when we go green with about some odd 8 to go.
Somewhere in the ballpark of Jeff McConey, you're a driver. Yes, we know you want to get to the high line. We know that's part of your strategy. What else is there in your pocket? And have you saved any moves, maybe, for the very end of this race?
My favorite move is called the Chrome Horn, and it means get out of my way. That is one option. I'm not saying wreck the guy, but push him around a little bit, be aggressive. I've been saying all night.
Just rattle his cage a little.
Yeah, oh yeah, just want to rattle his cage, that's all. And I mean, granted, that's coming from me of all people, so take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, you got to be aggressive. You have to be willing. We saw Will Norton. That was perfect, a perfect example of aggressive driving. He would not let Blake McCandless get to the top. Blake wanted to get to the outside. He wanted to clear him. He might have even had a chance there to move up, but if he knew if he moved up, he would have been sent into the next corner, because he was clear, but he wasn't really clear. And if you know what I'm saying there. So that was exactly what Will Norton needed to do. Now, a green flag run would have been better for him, because now on these restarts he gets shuffled further and further back. But he's got Santiago Tiras behind him. Now Blake McCandless is going to be starting on the outside row. I think Josh is right. For once, I'm willing to agree with Joshua Lee. This is going to be an exciting restart.
You're willing to agree with Josh. That's a terrifying thing. Josh, Prince, any news from the teams before we go green flag racing?
A lot of the teams trying to keep very loose on the radio right now and keep calm. For Blake McCandless, he's currently discussing how he wants to try and play this race out. He's mentioned, though, he does not want to try and play the bumper. He doesn't want to win this race dirty, so keep that in mind for how things could shape out. He has discussed, though, he did need some valuable points for RTP for that finale.
He did need some points. He needs a good finish. He needs to not have anything happen at the end of this that would hurt him, because he came into tonight 19 points on the outside looking in. This would certainly help, but even with a good finish, he's going to need a little bit more at Phoenix in order to have a shot at this. Parker Retzlaff, on the other hand, is racing to lock himself in. He's very close to being able to pull that off, and he might not even necessarily need the win in order to make that happen. He's right on the edge of possibly locking down his spot in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series tonight, as the lights are still on the pace car. So we'll have, looks like, maybe one more lap under yellow before we go green flag racing, as there was some contact there between Yarborough and Parker Retzlaff. Jeff McCody.
Oh, just a little. You know, let the boys have fun, you know? I think this is going to be, I'm really excited for this. I really want to see a lot of people sending it here. You can tell I am very excited for this.
Wait, do you love Bristol?
Nah, not really. It's okay, I guess.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I wasn't necessarily certain about it the first time, or the first million times, but maybe that first million and first time, that might be the one that finally sells it. Lights are off on the pace car, though. 6 laps left to settle this, and can Blake McCandless read the restart of Parker Retzlaff to be even with him when they get into 1 and 2? Retzlaff takes off, Yarborough takes off, McCandless is left in the dust, and he's going to be clear, Will Retzlaff. So it's Yarborough and McCandless who are going to have to fight for second.
Take a look at Yarborough on the bottom, gonna try and get up on top, but Blake McCandless does not work. It's 5 to go at the line. Everybody shuffling further on back, and everybody wrecking further on back. Bordeaux makes contact with Jones. Blackford's in this one. Ethan Lane's in this one as well, and the caution flag flies.
Casey Tucker is where that started. Derek Bordeaux is where that took off. And Bordeaux's Toyota Tundra is many different kinds of torn up, as you'll see on the replay here. Again, classic Bristol restart. Everybody just fighting for the same real estate. And you get towards this point of the race, and it's no holds barred. Nobody really cares. They'll use a bumper. They'll do whatever. And if you're in the way, you're going to get moved out of the way.
And it's just a typical big Bristol pileup when you get multiple trucks wrecking, nowhere for other trucks to go, and they just start slamming into each other. And Morse trying to get around it, could not there, and it's everybody tapping into each other. And this is so unfortunate to see with a lot of those fast guys further back. And Retzlaff now gonna have to gear up for another restart, and McCandless gonna have to gear up for another restart as well to try and get around Parker Retzlaff.
Work to be done, but Retzlaff got such a good jump on that restart, Jeff McCody. If you're Blake McCandless, you are almost going to have to beat Retzlaff to the line in order to have a chance, because eventually that outside line just come in. But we saw it with Austin Yarborough. Yarborough was nearly ahead of McCandless coming down the back straightaway halfway through that first lap after the restart. If you had maybe 4 or 5 laps, you might be able to do something with it. But I think at this point, the only way McCandless is going to have a shot at this is if he times the restart perfectly and maybe goes before Retzlaff and just holds back enough to make sure Retzlaff wins the battle of the line. But he's going to have to be completely even with Retzlaff to have any shot, I think, to win this as we enter our first green-white checker to the night.
What, are you silly, James?
No, I just learned a few things.
He's just going to send it.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Just send it! Are you kidding me? Blake McCandless has had an up and down season. He was running really good at Rockingham by running the wall and had some bad luck there. He's had some crazy strategies all throughout this entire Road to Pro run. I've been loving watching it. You know what? Blake, if you're listening, send it. Go out there, get this win. I'm not saying wreck the guy, but I'm saying drive that truck like you stole it, because this is your chance. Make something happen. You got the outside line. If you can stay even with Parker Retzlaff through turn 1, you got this.
There is a chance, but it's going to require absolute perfection. And there's a lot more on the line for McCandless and Retzlaff, too. We talked about it a few times tonight already, but again, McCandless, 19 points outside the cutoff for the top 20 coming into tonight. Retzlaff, 51 points to the good of that cutoff. So he is here, and all he has to do is just finish this race just about this point, and we are going to see Parker Retzlaff in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series in November. There's not really much more he needs to do. This is about locking in his place with authority if you're Retzlaff, but if you're McCandless, this is really one of the 2 legs you need to be perfect on, and then go to Phoenix and do it again to give yourself any sort of hope of clawing your way back into this top 20. Lights are off on the pace car. This will be our first attempt at a green-white checker finish. A reminder of the rules: if we get the white flag before we get a yellow flag, we will race back to the line, and if we get a yellow flag on that last lap, the field is frozen at the moment of caution, and that will be the finishing order, provided those trucks can make it back around to the line. If we get the yellow before we get the white, we will line everybody up and do it again for a maximum of 3 attempts to try and finish this race under green. Knowing Bristol, we may need all 3 of those attempts. We'll find out who comes away with the checkered flag in just a few short moments. Here's the first crack at a good restart. Austin Yarborough nailed it. Brilliant restart for Austin Yarborough, who timed it perfectly to jump ahead of Blake McCandless as Retzlaff takes off in 1 and 2.
He was able to beat McCandless across the line, but is he able to beat Parker Retzlaff going through turns 3 and 4? It's white flag in the air. Yarborough has 2/10 to make up.
No yellow, so this is it. 1 lap to go at Bristol Motor Speedway, and Parker Retzlaff just has to make it through the final few corners to lay down his spot in the Contender Series with authority as Retzlaff comes out of turn number 4 to win race number 6 in round number 2 of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series. Parker Retzlaff is going racing for a spot in the Coke Series in November, and he lands his spot with authority, driving his way through the field, back through the top 10 to get it all done. A big, big moment for Parker Retzlaff, who has tonight's Martin Sports winning moment. Founded by Scott Martin nearly 10 years ago in the frozen region of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, Martin Sports drives the best custom apparel for your needs. Whether you need shirts for your office, jerseys for a local sports team, or specially designed apparel for your sim racing group, Martin Sports has you covered. Along with the shirts and other team wear, they offer gloves specifically crafted for sim racing that are lightweight, breathable, and complete with padded leather palms. Use the code PODIUM to receive 40% off any pair of in-stock racing gloves at martinsports906.com. You can visit their website for more information or find their Facebook page at facebook.com/Martin Sports. We a quick moment here to step aside. We'll come back on the other side of this break with the post-race show. You're watching coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series from the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway on Podium Esports. When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Makoni Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Makoni Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Makoni Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MakoniSetupShop.com and learn why Makoni Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Makoni Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to the post-race show for the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series here on Podium Esports for the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway and iRacing, where Parker Retzlaff has won our race this evening, and Parker Retzlaff will be going to the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender iRacing Series in November. He has clinched his place into the final 40 drivers running for 20 spots in next season's Coke Series. Austin Yarborough comes home second. Blake McCandless with his best finish of round number 2 comes home P3. Santiago Tires was 4th, and Christian Peterson comes home in 5th. Justin Bolton with another consistent run. He finishes 6th. 7th went to Will Norton. 8th was Dylan Alt. Cody Bias was 9th. Then rounding out the top 10, Josh Lee was Casey Tucker.
Back from there, P11, Brian LaPrat. As Garrison Hogan comes home P12. Garrett Conrath, even after some issues mid-race, comes home P13. Michael Frisch, P14. Omar Diallo ended up in P15. Brendan Kohler, Dylan Jones, Derek Bordeaux, Brian Blackford, and Ryan Hill rounding out the top 20, all the way down to 29th. That's with Jeff Magoni.
Ethan Lane was 9 laps down after being dominant at the beginning. It finishes 21st. Then Brandon Cattell, 12 laps down, followed by Tanner Love, Connor Horn, Nicholas Morse, 109 laps down, followed by Aaron Rodgers, 128 down, Frank DeAngelis, 131, Mitchell Hunt, 176, and Jordy Lopez Jr., 199 laps down in 29th, rounding out this 29 truck field.
Before we get going with, well, actually, no, I take that back. We'll save that for the end because we've got one driver of a handful who are set to go racing in the Contender Series coming up in November. And we are now joined by one of those drivers who also happened to win our race this evening, Parker Retzlaff out of Rhineland, Wisconsin. And Parker, Contender Series, Parker Retzlaff. That combo is a nice ring to you, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, I was trying to finish the season out strong after kind of throwing away the Rockingham race on pit road with a mistake myself. I was glad to just finally finish one out for the team.
So you're going Contender Series racing in November. Does that change how you approach Phoenix at all, or are you still going to go for it, even though you don't really have anything on the line at this stage?
I mean, yeah, we're locked in, but I still want to go to Phoenix and race as hard as we did tonight and hopefully end with the same results we did tonight.
So carry on the momentum. How tough was it to drive through this field? You didn't necessarily have the track position you wanted early on in this race. You had to pick everybody off one by one. How difficult was that to do, especially at a place like this, which is notorious for just generally being tricky to get around?
Yeah, I mean, we had just such a good truck, but I was running on second, just riding around, just trying to wait until the long run, because I feel like our truck was really good on the long run. So I was trying to just wait around, and I just kept having cautions that were just making me just have to restart again. And then I ended up speeding on pit road, so I was 26th at like halfway, and then ended up just driving through the entire field. But it was hard, but the truck was just so good that it made it a lot easier for me.
Well, Parker, congratulations not only on your race victory this evening, but also your clinch into the Contender Series coming up in November. Thanks as always for the time, and we'll see you in 2 weeks from Phoenix.
I have to thank everyone. I have to thank Ponzi Ecotrax, Iron Horse Loggers, Grill Ads, Donovan Strauss for all the work in the set this week, and Boyd and Jared Crawford, Randall Falks, Chris Hill for always being their spotter, crew chief, everything on the box. I just have to thank all those guys for everything they do for me.
Parker Retzlaff, P1 this evening in Contender Series racing in November of 2021. Runner-up this evening with Austin Yarbrough for Elliott Sadler Esports, and he is with Josh Lee.
And a good night for Austin Yarbrough, and it was a tough fight as well. You fought all the way from P27 up to P2. Did that truck start to come alive in the middle of the race? Because it seemed like flip of a switch, and the 51 was right up to the front.
Yeah, I struggled. I didn't really struggle in qualifying. I just was trying to stop and hit another lap and slid through the line. So we was pretty good at the beginning. I was just pacing myself. Had Elliott Sadler on the box for me tonight, and he was just telling me to be patient and just try to make it to the end and not get caught up in any wrecks. And we didn't even make one adjustment the whole entire race. The truck just come to us, and we just believed in it, and that was about it. But we had a really solid piece, and I can't thank everybody at the Elliott Sadler Esports for all they do.
And it was a race that you needed tonight. You were looking for more success here in round number 2 after grabbing the win in race 2 from Knoxville. Coming into Bristol, how confident were you that you could put together a good operation and try and etch away a little bit more at the points in between yourself and 20th place, which coming into tonight was 21?
Yeah, man, I thought about the points a little bit, but I haven't been thinking about it the whole entire time. I knew the road courses was going to be a struggle for me. I'm not a road racer at all, and I felt confident in Knoxville, and I wanted to run top 3 there, and I ended up winning that race. But I really felt confident with Bristol, and I knew I needed a top 5, to try to keep my hopes alive. And I was able to come home with a solid top 2 finish, and now we're going to practice for the next 2 weeks and give it all we got at Phoenix.
And like you mentioned, giving it all at Phoenix, how confident are you that you can put together another good finish and try and get yourself into the top 20? Because Omar Diallo, who was in 19th, didn't have the best day. He finished P15. Casey Tucker, not with the best day. He finished P10. Just looking at the drivers around the cut line, not a ton of success around there. So if you can put together a good run at Phoenix, how confident are you that you can do that and get yourself into that top 20 and race in the Contender Series?
Yeah, I feel real good about it. I know everybody on the Elliott Salary Sports and Low Line's gonna work hard and not give up and try to get whoever can make it in. They're gonna try to give us a really good set for there. So I feel really confident about it. I've run good at Phoenix a couple times in the Cup car and stuff like that. I mean, I know it's a little bit different with the trucks, but I feel good about it. Coming off of a second place finish tonight, and be good momentum going into next week.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here post race on Podium Esports Austin. Congratulations on that P2.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Sightwork Estimated and Service for coming on board for the rest of the Road to Pro series. Elliott Salary Sports, all the guys there that help with the sets and spend all their time on the sets, and Low Line for all they do. Just everybody. It's a team effort, and we got a really good team.
Once again, thank you for joining us post-race. Congratulations on that P2 here at Bristol.
Thank you.
Good to hear from Austin Yarborough, James, and a great effort from the Elliott Sadler Esports number 51 tonight.
Great effort indeed for the Elliott Sadler Esports driver. A great effort also for the Kligerman Sport driver, Blake McCandless, with his best run of this second round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Comes home third in our race this evening, and he has earned an interview with our Jeff McConaughey.
Well, Blake, you worked your way up through the entire field from 24th all the way up to 3rd. You were leading laps, and you were saying you weren't even pushing that thing. So what was the magic tonight in getting from the back all the way up to the front? Was it anything or anywhere on the track in particular that worked well for you?
I tell you what, man, this truck was faster than a fast checkout. I mean, we were dialed in. Santiago Tires, Nook Shelton, Colin Keister, Colin Bowden, all the guys that work on this truck, they did a tremendous job dialing everything in, getting the handling right. And, I just think that I don't know if we're just faster, but we just always find ourselves running higher than the rest of the field, and it works out. I mean, we went to the middle or to the high side early on, and I don't know if everybody was saving or they put too much tape on or what, but we were just rolling out there, and once we got out front, we just had really good track position. I was prepared to do a pit strategy and have to throw a Hail Mary in this race. I didn't think after. We were the slowest qualifier tonight. We were the slowest truck that took time. I had no clue that on lap 29 after starting 24th I'd be 5th. I couldn't believe it. So just, hats off to the guys that got a really fast truck under us.
Yeah, it sure seemed like it. It was a truck fast enough to take you from 19 points out to 5 points out going into Phoenix here. What are your thoughts approaching that? Because there isn't really an alternative line to take at Phoenix. It's pretty much a one-way around the track, and if you want to get on someone's inside, you have to sort of bully them out of the way. You can do some crazy things going into turn 3. You can make the dog leg work, but all in all, you have to be pretty aggressive and really force the truck in on someone else there. So are we going to see a very aggressive, low-line hugging Blake McCandless here next week with being only 5 points out?
The one thing I've learned in this series, Jeff, is you can't ever commit to one thing. I've come into so many races thinking that this is the game plan, and on lap 2, Homestead or Rockingham, for example, we threw the whole game plan out on lap 2, and I don't imagine that that's going to be any different for Phoenix. We're just the one thing that this season has taught me is just you got to adapt. You have to adjust to what everyone else is doing. You can't just go in and have a mindset, and you just got to take opportunities when they present themselves. And I think this race and a lot of other races, we've just been able to do that, and it's worked out well for us. A couple races. We didn't have a great start to this round 2, but the races we've run well, we've kind of had to think outside the box for them, and pretty proud of that.
It sure seems like it. You've definitely learned a lot. You've been improving a lot. We've seen it week in and week out. My final question for you is, after this race, I'm awful hungry, and I'm going to go grab some dinner, but I'm looking to grab it out of a can. Do you have any recommendations for that?
Well, certainly so. We ate our Lux pinto beans tonight. I suggest that anyone out there go do that as well. There's no better time than 10:40, unless you're going to go to a Waffle House or something. By the way, got to say that this is about as awesome as winning a moon car race. But thanks to everybody that supports this effort: eRacer, Valvoline, JDR Graphics, Splash and Go, everybody at North Force Racing, obviously, Connecticut Realty Trust, Kligerman Sport, and again the whole field for giving me the opposite lane to run in the whole season. I hope we're able to do the same thing at Phoenix next week, if that's able to happen.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. You can catch all that action around here next time. And Blake McCandless, best of luck to you. We've been having a lot of fun watching you. Congratulations on a third place finish here tonight.
10-4, appreciate it.
It's Blake McCandless, who, like Jeff McConey said, entered tonight 19 points outside of the top 20. Now we'll head to Phoenix 5 points out of the top 20. 19 was going to be a stretch, but it's going to be doable. So, other news of note here, we can make 100% clear and confirm to everyone that the following 5 drivers have locked themselves into the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender iRacing Series that will start in November. Parker Retzlaff, we already know, is one of them. He won tonight's race. You saw it here live. Donovan Strauss will join him. No shocker there, given that he's already got 3 wins. And likewise for Colin Keister, who's got 2 wins in the second round. Those 2 are in the Contender Series with Parker Retzlaff. Briar LaPrade, as we thought he might, did lock himself in this evening, so Briar will be racing. And Jordy Lopez, even with that really, really poor race tonight, had built up enough of a lead that he too is confirmed as a Contender Series driver for November 2021, which means that there are now 15 spots up for grabs. We also have the duty of informing you all the drivers that are officially mathematically eliminated and out of contention for a contender place. And in order, that would be Jeremy Allen, Brian Johnson, Cedric Hunter, Brad Wright, Jose Solis Jr., Aaron Rodgers, Mitchell Hunt, Corey Carpenter, Patrick Moose, Frank DeAngelis, Derek Fulton, Benjamin Nelson, Seth Knoll, Nick Morse, Justin Nasir, Christian Budd, Temu Choika, Ryan Hill, Brian Blackford, Chris Overland, Tanner Love, Garrison Hogan, Michael Frisch, Dalton Collins, and Brian Lockwood, who could not carry the momentum after his victory at Watkins Glen. Which leaves us then with somewhere in the ballpark of, call it what, maybe 40 drivers fighting for 15 spots. And I think the most impressive thing, Josh Lee, looking ahead to Phoenix, you go from Michael Cozy Jr. all the way to Ethan Lane. That's a solid 10 drivers, all within 10 points. So yeah, there's going to be a little bit on the line at Phoenix, to say the least.
You thought the points fight was over when we came to Bristol. You are dead wrong. It is going to get just even more intense with now just 1 round left. I mean, we've talked about it since we started this Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series back in round 1. We've been talking about the journey getting to this final race. We've been talking about time running out. Time is officially out. It is now time for these drivers to focus up, get ready for Phoenix. If they're outside of that top 20, alarm bells are starting to ring. They better get to it at Phoenix. Try and get above that top 20, because if you don't, it is going to be a long, long off season until Road to Pro starts up again in 2022.
That's a lot of Class C racing you're going to be doing between September and March, which, hey, if you want to practice, you can practice, but that's not a fortune or a fate I would want to wish upon anybody. But just to set the stage as we go towards Phoenix, the first drivers who just missed locking themselves in tonight, Seth the Merchant won the race over on podium 2. He's got a 36-point buffer to the good heading into Phoenix. Just needs 4 points out of the race at Phoenix in 2 weeks' time to make it into the Contender Series. Cody Bias, 6 points on the outside. He's 34 clear. of P20, so he just needs a little bit more. Those two are largely okay, but you get down to this bubble, starting with Michael Cozy Jr. Cozy 7 points to the good. Caden Honeycutt is 6 points to the good. Casey Tucker 5 points to the good, and then Dylan Alt and Justin Bolton tied for 19th and 20th respectively, and then Omar Diallo and Colin Bowden 1 point back of Alt and Bolton. And then Blake McCandless, who we talked about, he's 5 points back, and Austin Yarborough also 5 points back of that cutoff line. And then Ethan Lane, who even with the terrible luck and maybe the worst luck of any driver in any single race in the whole of this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series in 2021, he still has a shot at this. He's only 7 points back. So that bubble, yeah, tight, I think. Maybe an understatement.
Very much is, and going into Phoenix, it's just especially going to be amplified because we have the drivers that are locked in. They might still show up, they might not. We have the drivers that have mathematically no chance of making it into the top 20. They might show up, they might not, but it's especially crucial for those drivers in the middle. And you think about some of the drivers who were about to be knocked out mathematically, but then maybe got themselves back into it here at Bristol. And a lot of drivers don't show up. If we have a 20 trucks top split here that we broadcast on Podium Esports, that's a lot of points that the drivers will then be missing out on if they need a ton going into the final round.
It's a valid point that you'd love to see every truck show up in 2 weeks' time, Jeff McConey. If you're on the outside looking in, it only helps your case, especially if there are issues that befall some of the drivers on the edge of the top 20 now, but not necessarily a guarantee. So you're going to have to get up on the wheel and race it. But, you know, at the same time, Phoenix is the kind of track where you have to get up on the wheel to race it anyway.
That you do, and it's a tough track. You have the banking in turns 1 and 2 and a relatively flat turns 3 and 4. You have the dog leg, which is open. You can drive it really aggressively in there, but the problem is, especially with the trucks, it's very, very easy for the back end to snap around on you. Phoenix is deceptively simple. It can really, really kick your butt if you are not being careful and approaching it correctly. So you have to really keep your head on a swivel. And we haven't gotten the updated version of Phoenix where the dog leg is the start-finish line. It's still the original version from a couple years back where turns 1 and 2 are banked, 3 and 4 are flat, and the dog leg is the backstretch. So we'll be referring to it as such throughout the race. Don't get too confused if you're brand new to NASCAR within the last, 2 years they've been running it like that. Don't be confused. Phoenix was originally laid out like this. It was better when it was laid out like this. So we'll have that layout coming to you, but you can really make some things happen when you are being aggressive there. And we talked about aggression a bunch tonight, but I think at Phoenix where the opportunities are less to make passes and you can really make a lot of difference on the long run versus Bristol where it's a lot of where you're running on the track and how aggressive you're being. Phoenix, you can make more long run strategy plays work, but you also have to be careful and you do have to make those passes quickly. You don't want to get stuck side by side with someone and just lose ground compared to everybody else.
As flat as Phoenix is, there's a lot more tire management in play there than there is here at Bristol. You can burn off the rear tires, in particular on corner exit coming out of turn 2 and coming out of turn 4. And that, especially if we do get a long green flag run, could end up being the difference between who moves on to the Contender Series and who is stuck on the outside looking in and stuck spending a long, long winter trying to get prepared for next season's eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. But only one race left to go. We head west to Phoenix Raceway coming up in 2 weeks' time. That broadcast will come your way September 30th, final day of the month, 9 p.m. Eastern, the grand finale to the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. We will complete the list of 20 drivers who will advance from this series into the Contender Series in November. And you'll see the broadcast of both races, as always, on twitch.tv/Podium Esports and twitch.tv/Podium2, 9 p.m. Thursday, September 30th. Of course, plenty of races coming your way before we get to that race. It'll continue with the MSRA Premier Series from Bristol this Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Podium 2 Twitch channel, as well as the Podium Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages. It's the final race in the round of 16 for the MSRA Premier Series, so we'll see a lot of fun here in the virtual Thunder Valley on Saturday night. Then Sunday night, the All-Star Race for Season 4 of the SimMax Cup Series, powered by MPI on the main Podium Esports Twitch channel, 9:15 p.m. Eastern. Our start time for that race, Sunday, September 19th. The Optimo iRacing League heads to Watkins Glen. You'll see that broadcast on their YouTube channel this upcoming Tuesday night, September 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then, a week from then, the cutoff race for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. We'll find out which drivers advance to the championship alongside Bobby Zielinski and Keegan Leahy from Talladega. iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, YouTube channels at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and then PCA Sim Racing heading to Silverstone the night after to start Series 7, 9 p.m. Eastern. That broadcast will kick off on the PCA Sim Racing YouTube channel before the aforementioned finale to the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series. Phoenix Raceway, September 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/Podium Esports and twitch.tv/Podium2. You will not want to miss the conclusion to what has been a fascinating series of racing in 2021. We cannot wait to bring you the final chapter in this story. And for more information on how to start your iRacing career and potentially work your way into next season's eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, log on to iRacing.com for more information on how you can get involved in sim racing today. So many people to thank for all of our team at Podium Esports, for the folks behind the glass making things happen. Gary Sexton, Sisto Scaramuza, John Theodore. For tonight's producer, Ryan Bauer. Our camera builder, as always, Dougie Beard, Justin Prince down on pit road, and my colleagues in the booth, Josh Lee and Jeff McConey. I am James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching our broadcast of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Bristol, and we will see you for the finale 2 weeks from tonight at iRacing's virtual Phoenix Raceway.